The dining room was thick with the smell of roasted turkey and birthday cake, but the warmth in the air was fake, stretched thin over the tension humming beneath every smile. The long mahogany table was crowded, uncles in crisp suits, aunts in glittering jewelry, cousins whispering into each other's ears. But all their laughter stopped the moment my grandfather's cane struck the hardwood floor. His voice cut like a blade through the silence. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Did the account transfer go through? He demanded, his sharp blue eyes pinned directly on me. I froze mid-breath, a fork dangling in my hand. What transfer? I asked, my voice shaky but clear enough to carry across the room. The air shifted. My mother's wineglass slipped in, her hand. My father cleared his throat and looked away. My older brother, Daniel, stiffened like a soldier at attention. My cousin chewed slowly, eyes darting around like a spectator waiting for the explosion. Grandpa's weathered fist slammed down on the table, rattling the plates. "Don't play dumb with me," he barked, his voice cracking with fury. "I wired a large sum, enough to cover your future, to make sure you were safe and never dependent on anyone. Where is it? Who took it?" My heart punched against my ribs. "Grandpa, I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered, my face heating with humiliation. "I never received anything." For a second, silence swallowed the room. Then came the whispers. "She's lying," my aunt whispered sharply. "Or maybe she already spent it," my uncle muttered, his lip curling. Daniel leaned back in his chair, a sly smile twitching at the corner of his mouth. I looked at him, that smug, self-satisfied expression flashing across his face. The realization struck me cold. My chest tightened with betrayal. "You knew," I hissed at him under my breath, barely able to contain the storm building inside me. Grandpa caught it, his gaze snapping to Daniel like a hawk to prey. "Did you touch that account?" he demanded, his voice booming. Daniel gave a short laugh, feigning innocence. "Why would I? I've got my own savings." But I noticed the way his fingers drummed nervously on the table, the slight tremor in his jaw. "I swear," I said firmly, sitting straighter, my voice cutting through the rising clamor. "I never received anything. If Grandpa sent money, someone else intercepted it. And I think I know who." The whole table erupted. Accusations, defenses, voices climbing over each other like wild animals fighting for dominance. Grandpa rose slowly, leaning on his cane, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "Then tomorrow morning," he growled, "we will find out exactly where that money went. And God help the one who dared to take it." My pulse thundered in my ears. Tomorrow would be war, and this time, I wasn't walking into it quietly. The morning sun burned through the curtains like an interrogation lamp. My phone buzzed nonstop, calls from my mother, texts from my aunt, even a string of missed calls from Daniel. I ignored them all. My grandfather had summoned everyone to his estate by 9 a.m. sharp, and when Grandpa gave an order, it wasn't a suggestion. I arrived early, the tires of my old Toyota crunching on the gravel driveway. The mansion loomed like a fortress, its white pillars casting long shadows. Through the massive windows I saw silhouettes pacing and arguing already. My chest tightened, but I squared my shoulders. Last night's humiliation still burned in me like fire. I wouldn't let them twist the truth. Inside, the living room had been transformed into a courtroom. Grandpa sat at the head of a long leather couch, his cane resting against his knee, his presence commanding absolute attention. His lawyer, Mr. Whitman, a stern man with silver hair and sharp glasses, stood nearby with a thick folder in his hand. My relatives filled the room like restless spectators waiting for a verdict. "You're late," my mother snapped as I entered, her tone dripping with judgment. I ignored her, lifting my chin. I'm right on time. Grandpa's eyes cut to me, and for a moment, his face softened, but it hardened again as his gaze swept over the rest of the family. Mr. Whitman, he said, his voice gravelly. Show them. The lawyer cleared his throat and pulled out a stack of printed bank statements. The sound of paper hitting the coffee table was louder than a gunshot in that tense room. On March 12th, Whitman began, adjusting his glasses, Mr. Hale authorized a transfer of $250,000 to an account under the name of his granddaughter, Emily. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. My hands went cold. But, Whitman continued, his tone slicing like a scalpel, this account was not created by Emily. It was set up fraudulently. The funds were transferred to a secondary account. Almost immediately, that secondary account belongs to... He paused, his eyes scanning the faces. Daniel Hale. The room detonated. What? I shouted, my head whipping toward my brother. My heart pounded so violently I thought I might collapse. Daniel shot to his feet, his face pale but his arrogance intact. That's ridiculous. I don't know what kind of trick this is, but I didn't steal anything. Whitman slid a document across the table. Your signature, Mr. Hale. Clear as day. We traced the account. It's yours. Grandpa's cane slammed against the floor, the sound echoing like thunder. You lying, thieving boy! He roared, his voice shaking the walls. I entrusted you all with family honor, and you rob your own sister? Daniel's mask cracked, his jaw clenched, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. She doesn't deserve it, he shouted, pointing at me with a trembling finger. Everything goes to her. You've spoiled her, Grandpa. What about me? I work just as hard, I'm just as worthy. My stomach twisted, rage flooding me. You stole my future, I snapped, tears stinging my eyes. You didn't just take money. You took my chance to breathe without debt, to have a life of my own. You betrayed me. Mother jumped in, her face red. Stop it. Daniel is your brother, Emily. You can't tear this family apart over some wires and numbers. He was desperate. Desperate? I cut her off, my voice trembling but sharp. He had a choice, and he chose to stab me in the back. Grandpa slowly rose from his chair, leaning heavily on his cane, his fury contained but lethal. No, he said, his voice like ice. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft, fraud, and I won't cover for him. He turned to Whitman. File the charges. The room froze. My mother gasped, clutching her pearls. Daniel staggered back as though struck. You'd send me to jail? Your own grandson? Grandpa's eyes blazed. I'd send anyone to jail who dares betray family blood. My father finally spoke, his voice low and shaking. Dad, please, don't do this. It will destroy us. Grandpa's hand trembled as he gripped his cane tighter. You destroyed yourselves the moment you let greed rot your hearts. Daniel lunged forward, his voice breaking with desperation. Grandpa, please, I thought I deserved it more than she did. She's weak. She doesn't know how to handle money. His eyes darted to me, venom flaring again. She would have wasted it. The words cut deeper than the theft. My throat tightened, fury and pain boiling together. You don't get to decide what I deserve, I said, my voice steady now, steel beneath the tremor. You took what wasn't yours, Daniel. And the worst part? You didn't just steal money. You proved to me that family can be your sharpest knife. Silence swallowed the room. Daniel's chest rose and fell like a man drowning. Finally, Grandpa exhaled, his fury giving way to something heavier. Disappointment. Emily, he said softly, his eyes locking on mine. From this moment, I want you to know. You are the only one in this family I still trust. The room erupted again, relatives protesting, crying out, but his words hung like a gavel strike. My hands shook, my breath uneven, But for the first time in years, I felt seen. The war had only just begun. But this round, I wasn't the victim. Daniel's face turned the color of ash. He stumbled back against the mantel, his breathing ragged as if the walls were caving in around him. My mother rushed to his side, gripping his arm like she could shield him from reality. "This isn't fair!" she cried. "He's your grandson, Father! You can't throw him to the wolves!" Grandpa's eyes narrowed into cold slits. "Fair?" His voice was sharp as glass. "Was it fair when he stole from Emily, lied to her face, and let the whole family accuse her? Was it fair when he used my trust as his weapon?" His cane struck the floor once, the sound final. "I will not reward betrayal with protection." The room fractured into chaos. My uncle barked something about keeping things private. My cousins whispered fiercely in corners, and my father pinched the bridge of his nose as though the shame was too heavy to bear. But my gaze never left Daniel. He stared at me with eyes full of fury and humiliation, his jaw clenched so hard the veins in his neck bulged. "You think you've won, don't you?" he spat, his voice low but venomous. "Don't look so smug. This isn't over." I straightened in my chair, every muscle trembling but my voice steady. "You're right. It's not over, but you don't get to write the ending anymore." Grandpa's lawyer leaned forward, sliding more documents across the table. "There's more," he said calmly. "The funds weren't just transferred once. They were siphoned. Smaller amounts pulled out over the course of several weeks. Luxury items purchased, trips booked, all tied to Daniel's card." A shocked murmur rippled across the room. My aunt gasped, clutching her pearl necklace. My father finally exploded, his fist slamming onto the armrest of his chair. "Daniel! For God's sake, what were you thinking?" Daniel's face twisted with defiance. "I was thinking about finally getting what I deserve." His voice cracked like a whip, loud enough to silence the room. He pointed at me, his hand shaking. "She's always been the favorite. Always. You think she struggled? You all coddled her while I had to fight for scraps of recognition. I took what should have been mine." The words hit me like blows, but something inside me hardened. For years I'd shrunk under his shadow, absorbing his cruelty in silence. But now, seeing him unravel, I realized this wasn't strength. It was desperation cloaked in arrogance. "You don't even see me, do you?" I said, my voice low, measured. "I never asked for anyone's pity. I worked, I scraped, I lived with nothing while you sneered. You had everything handed to you, Daniel. And still, it wasn't enough. So you stole." His laugh was harsh, broken. "You think you're better than me?" Grandpa slammed his cane down again, the room trembling under his fury. "Enough!" His voice thundered through the walls. "Daniel Hale, you are stripped of every benefit, every trust I ever considered for you. From this day forward, you are cut off. You will face the consequences of your greed, alone." My mother gasped like she'd been stabbed. "Father, no, you can't mean that." "I mean every word," Grandpa said, his tone final. "This family has rotted from entitlement and envy. Emily is the only one who has shown honesty. The rest of you should be ashamed." The silence that followed was suffocating. My heart pounded in my chest, torn between the pain of seeing my family fractured and the strange, sharp relief of the truth finally out. Daniel's face contorted. He looked at me like a predator cornered, then back at Grandpa. "You'll regret this," he hissed. His voice was quiet now, dangerous. "Both of you." My stomach knotted, but I held his gaze. "The only thing I regret," I said firmly, "is thinking you were ever my brother." He stormed out, the door slamming so hard the walls rattled. My mother ran after him, shouting his name, but he didn't look back. The sound of her heels clattering down the marble hallway echoed like a funeral march. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Grandpa turned to me, his expression heavy but resolute. "Emily," he said, his voice quieter now, "I know this isn't easy. But sometimes truth cuts deeper than lies. Today, you stood your ground. Don't ever forget this feeling. My throat tightened. It doesn't feel like victory, I whispered. It's not supposed to, he replied, his eyes softening. It feels like survival. And survival, my dear, is what builds strength. As the family dispersed in bitter silence, whispers trailing behind them, I stepped out onto the porch. The cool morning air hit my face, sharp and clean, a contrast to the suffocating chaos inside. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel weak. I felt free. But deep down, I knew Daniel's words weren't empty. He wouldn't vanish quietly. The storm wasn't over. It was just circling, waiting for its chance to strike again. And when it did, I vowed, I wouldn't be the same frightened girl he'd always known. I'd be ready. The silence in the house that day didn't last long. By evening, news traveled like wildfire. A cousin texted me. Daniel's furious. He's saying you set him up. Another message followed from an aunt. Your mother's defending him, calling Grandpa cruel, calling you manipulative. The words stung, but I didn't flinch. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of whispers. Still, I braced myself. I knew Daniel wouldn't disappear quietly, and I was right. 2 nights later, headlights swept across my driveway. Tires screeched to a halt. I froze at the window. Heart pounding as Daniel stormed out of his car. His face was pale, twisted with rage, eyes wild like a man cornered by his own lies. He hammered at my front door, shouting loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Open up, Emily! You think you're better than me? Fear prickled down my spine, but I didn't cower. I opened the door a crack, chains still latched. My voice was steady. Go home, Daniel. Home? He laughed bitterly, shoving against the door. I don't have a home anymore. Thanks to you. You ruined everything. No, Daniel, I said firmly, my pulse thundering. You did that all by yourself. For a moment, I saw the boy I used to know, the brother who teased me when we were kids who once stood up for me in a schoolyard fight. But that boy was gone, swallowed whole by greed. Grandpa won't live forever, he spat suddenly, his eyes narrowing. When he's gone, everything will fall back to me. You'll see. You're nothing without his protection. The venom in his voice cut deep, but something inside me shifted. I realized he was wrong. I wasn't nothing. Not anymore. Unlatched the chain and stepped fully into the doorway, my voice clear and unwavering. You're wrong, Daniel. I don't need protection. I've already survived you, and that's more powerful than any inheritance. For once, he had no reply. His jaw tightened, his face twisted, and with a final glare, he stormed back to his car. The tires screamed against the asphalt as he sped into the night. I stood in the doorway long after the sound faded, my hands shaking but my spirit unbroken. The next morning, Grandpa came by. He didn't speak at first, just placed an envelope on my kitchen table. Inside were new documents, the deeds, the accounts, all shifted to my name. Emily, he said quietly, his hand resting on mine. I don't know how much longer I have, but I refuse to leave this family's legacy in the hands of liars. From this day forward, you are the heir. Not because of blood, not because of favoritism, but because you earned it, because you told the truth when it mattered. Tears blurred my vision. Grandpa, I don't want this to be about revenge. He nodded. Then don't make it about revenge. Make it about change. Do better than we did. His words sank deep. For the first time, I saw beyond the chaos, beyond Daniel's betrayal, beyond my parents' silence. This wasn't just about money. It was about survival, about reclaiming my voice after years of being silenced. When the rest of the family learned the truth, the backlash was loud. My mother refused to speak to me. My father called it a disgrace, and Daniel disappeared into the shadows of his own mistakes. But none of that broke me, because for once, I wasn't living in their shadows anymore. On my birthday, my life had been ripped open, secrets spilling across the table like shattered glass. But in the wreckage, I found something I'd never had before: strength. And as I locked my door that night, staring out at the quiet street, I whispered to myself the truth I finally believed. I am not their victim anymore. I am my own beginning.